Welcome everyone to the Electrical Culture of Safety Livewire program, where we delve into all the complexities of creating a culture of safety within the electric utility industry. In each episode, we feature interviews with subject matter experts, industry leaders, safety professionals, and field personnel from across the industry, where we discuss ways to develop a collective reflection of the perception, attitudes, and shared experiences of the safety culture within our industry. Welcome to ECOS Livewire.
There he is, Mr. Dwight. How you doing, brother?
Hey, I'm doing good. How you doing, Brother Brent?
Doing awesome, man.
Good
Yeah, I
deal.
haven't seen you in a coon's age, brother.
See you. Good to see you.
Yeah. Were we at a conference recently, and you were speaking and I was speaking, and but we didn't have a chance to spend time together.
Yeah, I don't remember where that was. So
It was fast and furious, man. I think, no, you know what?
What's that?
It was earlier this year, the T&D conference, and you had to leave. You spoke and you had to leave.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, I had to leave. Yeah.
Remember
right.
that?
Yeah.
T&D Trainers Conference.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Yeah.
So
You know what I remember most about that conference, Brent, is I had a conversation with Dr. Charlie Cartwright. He called me when I was in the motel room, and Dr. Charlie passed away last Saturday. And
Really?
we had talked, it was actually the longest conversation I ever had with Dr. Charlie. We talked about an hour and a half and just talked about everything. And, we talk a lot about the Lord because he's a Christian, who we're both, believers. And so anyway, so we talked a lot about the Lord in that conversation. And and I got a phone call Saturday morning that Dr. Charlie had just passed away, 62
Wow.
years old. Yeah.
62?
My age. Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, very sad. So anyway, it was devastating for our industry. He's a great presenter. He had a great heart, and so
Well,
I'll dedicate this to Dr. Charlie.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. So Dwight, let's talk about you, man. Let's talk about you coming into this industry years and years ago. You've been in the industry for how long now? Close to what, 30 something?
40 years. Yeah.
40 years.
plus.
Yeah.
Mm.
So give us a rundown on how that all began for you.
Yeah. I started out back working for Local 71 back in 1985, and started in as a groundman, and my company ended up liking me. They kept me after the job was over. They kept two of us. There were 35 guys on the job. They kept two of us, and so anyway. And you know what? I had a really good. I had one of the guys I worked with. He said, "Let me give you some good advice." He said, "Always be working." He said, "Just always be working." He said, "When everybody else is, taking a break or whatever, just always be working." That's what I did, and that was actually what ended up getting me, kind of really kick-started in the industry. It was because my company really liked me. They liked my work ethic. But I mean, I've always had good work ethic anyway, with my mom and dad being Amish, coming from that background. And so
Yeah.
anyway, so I started in 1985, and then they got me into the apprenticeship. My company helped get me into the apprenticeship in Albat, which is the NJTC in our area. And so anyway, and I ended up seeing two devastating electrical contacts within the first 18 months of my career that they were life-altering, almost career-altering in the sense that after the second one, I was getting ready to get out of the business. Thought if that's my end, then I really don't want to be in the business. And so, but I had one of my coworkers. He talked me into staying in. And he said, "Hey, I think you got a good future in this business. I think you ought to stay." And so that was why I stayed, just because of that conversation. I'll never forget that conversation. Because I was going to go home and never come back after the second one. And so, anyway. Ended up, going through my apprenticeship, getting through my apprenticeship and everything. Worked in a lot of extremely hazardous situations. The industry, as everybody else that was working in the mid 80s knows, what it was like back then, especially with the mom and pop outfit. It was very hazardous, extremely dangerous things that we put ourselves into. For me personally, it was because I didn't know any better, because it's just what I'd been taught. And so anyway, so I literally went to work every day back then, knowing that my life could be over that day. And so just because that was what we were told, that was the right attitude that we were supposed to have back then. Isn't that crazy? So anyway, I ended up going through the apprenticeship and a 7-step apprentice. And when I turned 7-step apprentice, they made me a foreman. So I was actually a line foreman. Became line foreman in 1989, and ended up the last 6 months of my apprenticeship as a foreman. And we worked in that time. We worked Hurricane Hugo. That was my first big hurricane. And then I worked contract and worked so many different types of work, and just so grateful for what I for the experience I got. But in 1990, so 35 years ago, I actually started. That's when I first started teaching. So, which is pretty crazy, 35 years ago. And let me tell you, Brad, it was the blind leading the blind. Okay, so,
wow.
I mean, as a contractor, I thought I knew a lot, and so the fact is, I knew a whole lot less than what I thought I knew, for sure. I'm not saying I know everything now by any means, but I know more than what I knew then. I guarantee you that. So anyway, and I actually taught Albat then from 90 to 95 part-time while I was working full-time. And then in the meantime, I was trying to get on with the local cooperative. Had a local cooperative real close, and I couldn't get on. It was different back then. It was hard to get a job. Then I was one of the few that were working actually at the time out of our local. And so it was so bad at the time. They actually put our assessments up to 5%. So we went from 3 to 5%, straight off the top. But they were taken out of our paycheck, And so anyway, but we kept the union going at that time. And then finally in 1994, I got on with the co-op. So 9 years later, 9 years into my career, I got on at Morrow Electric, and then so then my cooperative career started at that point. And I ended up I was a lineman, and then 10 years later, then I became the line supervisor at the shop that I was working out of. But back in 2001, I thought when I went from the contractors to the co-op, I thought that safety would be amazing, right? Well, it wasn't. And one of my coworkers ended up getting killed in 2001. There were 7 of us at that shop and only 6 at the end of the day. And never forget the Mayday call, So, the 2 electrical contacts that I witnessed in 1986, I had to do a rescue on the one, Brent, and that was the life-altering one. Trauma at its worst. When I'm going up there to rescue him, and I don't even know what's up there, what's energized or what's what. I knew I had to stay away from what got him, was all that I knew. And so anyway, but it changed my life forever. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks after that, And so when people go through traumatic events, it's they are life altering. They just are, I know of one that just happened. I certainly am not going to say where it was at, but here's what just happened. Okay. There was just an electrical contact 2 weeks ago. Okay. At this location. And so anyway, the guy that it happened to, he doesn't even remember anything from that day. The other 3 that were there at the scene, they were extremely traumatized. The guy that it happened to, he ended up surviving the contact. And so he's okay today, but the other guys are, it really affected them. Isn't that kind of crazy, Yeah. And so anyway, but that's what will happen, with trauma. And so, but anyway, and then in 2000, so I ended up becoming a line supervisor then in 2004. And then in 2007, well, the sad thing was about the 2001 fatality. That's actually when my cooperative started taking safety seriously. So anyway, and when I started really learning things about safety, okay, and then when I really started understanding things. And then in 2004 became line supervisor. Then in 2007, I actually had a divine encounter and with instructions what to do with my life. And so anyway, after that, then they had been trying to get me to take over the state's apprenticeship program in 2007. And so anyway, after the divine encounter, that is exactly what the instructions were. And so I ended up taking over that position and took over what we would brand within the next year or two as the COLT program, and so Central Ohio Lineworker Training, but it was the Ohio Cooperatives training. And so I did that. I actually was based out of Marion Technical College with that program from 2007 to 2013. That's when I became director of the safety for the Ohio's Electric Cooperatives, and then that apprenticeship program was under my purview at that point. And so anyway, and so 14 years later, here I am. It was January 13th, so it'll be 14 years come January. So and it's been amazing, man. It's been an amazing career. I never could have imagined, the career that I've had. One of the amazing things that I get to do, it's a real privilege. That's to represent our 900 cooperatives on the National Electric Safety Code under Subcommittee 8 under the work rules, and so get to be in those conversations in that room, and get to. I think the last time that I brought some stuff up made a lot of people mad, and so but that's okay. So anyway, and they're still mad about it, but that's okay because we're trying to get some movement in the right direction on some safety issues. And so anyway, and so now here I set to retire next July from my position, and then we'll go from there. So I don't plan on quitting the industry, but I do plan on doing some other stuff, and so on my own. And so the rest of the story is yet to be told. But I'm extremely thankful to everyone like yourself in the industry that I know. I know so many people in this amazing industry. So thankful for all the people in Ohio that have come to trust, our leadership here in our department. I have 9 guys that work out of this department, and we have 4 full-time instructors at the training field. We got 2 guys out doing safety meetings all the time, 1 doing compliance and regulatory, and I have an assistant, and he does some special projects as well. And so anyway, it's just an amazing department, amazing bunch of guys, and certainly blessed way more than I deserve. So yeah.
I remember meeting up with you, Dwight, you set up I think it was 2 weeks of touring. I'm not sure if it was 2 weeks, but you set it up to go around to the cooperatives in Ohio at different service centers, and we were doing training, and you gave me a tour at through your COLT facilities, and indoors, outdoors, super impressive. I mean, tell us a little bit about, and you even sent some plans to some folks that were thinking about doing a indoor and outdoor training facility. You shared those with me to share further to the folks, to forward them on, and which is incredible. But how did that facility come about? Because it's very impressive.
Yeah, well, I'll kind of explain it here. I appreciate that. And we have given our plans out to about 6 other states, actually. Mm-hmm. So we've given out a number of times, and there is a duplicate of it that is in Idaho right now. So that was built in Idaho. And so I always had the dream when I took over the apprenticeship. I always had the dream of a great indoor facility. We had a 16-acre pole farm, and we were constantly working on that and putting some, getting things out there where we could, improve our training. And then when I got a new boss, he was able to help make some things move at the higher level. And so anyway, and he asked me what I wanted, and I said I want an indoor training facility. And hey, you know what? He made it happen. We ended up buying the ground that we were leasing, buying the building that we were leasing, And then that allowed us then to construct an indoor training facility. That's really amazing, you know. And I'll tell you, and this is certainly not to put anybody down, put any other facilities down, but what we did was we went and we toured other indoor facilities. And, you know, I always tell people what I learned was what not to do. You know, sometimes we learn by watching people do it right, and sometimes we learn by watching people do it wrong, right? You know, that's leadership a lot of times. Well, anyway, on the indoor facilities, we actually, you know, learn from people doing it wrong a lot of times. And it's like, man, okay, so what do we need to do here? So we ended up becoming a one of a kind facility, because what we ended up doing was we ended up building permanent stations in the facility. And so so they're built permanently. They're built where students can work on them well. They're not movable, so they perform more like working on a pole out in the field, you know, working on whatever you're working on. It works very well. And so anyway, and we got, you know, we energize it in there. It's we do amazing things, you know, with everything that we have in there. But I'll tell you, with the facility is one thing, but let me tell you something I've learned, Brent, in my 40 years, you know. One of the things I've learned is you can have the best curriculum, or you can have the best building, the best training facilities, but if you don't have the best instructors, it doesn't really matter. It's going to make hardly no difference. And so, you know, and I'm going to tie this into like what we're seeing in our industry right now, okay? Is that a lot of times I think that we don't place enough emphasis on our instructors and our trainers, that the quality has to be extremely, extremely high. If we don't get the quality of our trainers to be extremely high, then our guys' work practices are going to reflect our instructors, guaranteed. Because it takes an effective instructor to be able to instill it in the student in such a way that that student can actually integrate those work practices out into the crew with the peer pressure that he has on that crew to conform to the way that things are. And so it takes a special instructor that can instill the courage, the boldness, and the confidence of those safe work practices to be able to take that out there and say, I'm not putting up with working in an unsafe work environment. I didn't know that we were doing it unsafe. You know, I didn't know that we were doing it in a way where my safety was compromised, and I'm not doing it anymore. And so that was kind of what we saw in Ohio, you know, back in 2007. It's like, it's amazing what we saw from the movement in 2007 to where we're at in 2025. But it really began with these students that refused to work in an environment where the lineman was compromising safety. And so, and I just want to say one thing on that, Brent. You know, I hear, you know, everybody's got their theory on how to fix the industry, but there is no easy fix. There's no quick fix. It's one lineman at a time, and it's one shop at a time. It's one apprentice, one journeyman at a time, and one shop at a time. And it's finding the deficiencies. There's different deficiencies, you know, at each shop, and there are some amazing line shops. And here's what we're not doing in the industry is we are not mimicking the great line shops to the other ones. Instead, we're trying to come up with all these things. Well, it's this, it's that, you know, it's all mental, it's, you know, and I agree with all those things, because it's typically all the above, you know. And so, but it starts with effective instruction. And that's what we saw in Ohio. I mean, that's exactly what we have seen. Is we have seen our Central Ohio Line Worker Training, COLT, our COLT training facility, we have seen it turn the culture upside down here in Ohio. And it is amazing. I mean, it has been literally amazing. And the hand of the Lord has really been on that program, you know. I mean, he's just blessed it. And so anyway, and yeah, so we have benefited, you know, from that, from the training over the last number of years. Like I said, we got 4 full-time guys at our training facility right now. We're small. People ask us how we do it. I'm going, they you know, when they trust you, they're willing to open up their pocketbooks. When they trust you, when they think that you can help make them better, they will open up their pocketbooks. We are very expensive. There is no doubt about it. We are very expensive. And so, but when it comes down to, when it comes down to management, what do they do? Do they trust you? Do they not trust you? If they don't trust you, then they're not going to fork over, the money to change the things that they need changed in their culture, to help them. So anyway, so trust is paramount with what we do as a statewide, for sure.
Yeah, it's a great example, and I know I've probably met all four of them when I was down there, Dwight. But the trainers that you have there in your facility, like you said, they are quality, and they talk with you, and they don't talk at you, and they're not presumptuous and pretentious, and the relationship that they bring forth and you come together is so easy. And building, like you said, building that trust and that line of communication to where the student opens up, the apprentice opens up, and even your continuing training with your journeyman and refreshing courses, it just keeps their minds open. And you want to receive. You're not going to because you have to be trained or you have to learn. You really get to a point where the quality is such that you really want to continue learning. That's what I see.
That is so true. And our journeymen, they love to come to class. Mm-hmm. When we first started a journeyman class, they were really leery, as you can imagine, So anyway, but they love to come to Cole. And so why? Because our instructors know how to facilitate journeyman training. There's 3 types of training that has to happen for adult learning. So 3 things have to be present. And this actually comes from OSHA. OSHA says that there's 3 things that has to be present for adult learning to be effective. And it is your traditional instructor to student, but then it's also student to instructor. So there has to be a feeling of the student that they're offering something back. But one of the most important parts is student to student. And so when the students are helping one another out and they're discussing things throughout, they're talking after class, they're talking during class, they're talking during stations. And all that. And so anyway, but those 3 things have to be present when, in order for effective training to be present. And so, yeah. And the other thing is too, Brent, is that, we have our student to instructor ratio in the field is 4 to 1. We only have 4 students to 1 instructor. That's all we will run.
Wow.
And why? Because now with journeyman, we'll run a couple more than that, but with apprentices, it's 4 to 1. Why? Because they need one-on-one. They have to have small groups. Yeah. There's a major program that everyone would know if I said the name. They run a 16 to 1 in the field. That does not work. That does not work, period. It absolutely, it's atrocious is what it is. And so anyway, and so then you end up having accidents. You say, how did this happen? It's like, well, where does it all start at? It all starts with the foundation of solid training, great instructors, with a great format of training that is proven to be effective. And so anyway, the other thing that our instructors do is they exemplify humility, and humility, and they exemplify the same traits that you have to have in leadership in the field. And so anyway, and I don't know if we're going to go there today or not, but one of the things that what I think is the number one thing in the field, it's all about the leader in the field, and it's the leader in the field setting the right tone for the rest of the crew. There's actually a study that actually proved that. Maybe if we get time, I might be able to share that. But anyway, a study that actually proved that the type of leader and the tone that he sets is what determines how things go during the job. So there has to be a level of humility. I used to be an arrogant crew leader. I started leading crews in 1989, Brent. One of the things that I was most shameful of, in my career was that, when I was, how old would I have been then? I was 24 years old running crews, and I was a cocky little dude, man, I bet. And so, you don't have to agree, Brent, so. But anyway, I was a cocky little dude, man. And so anyway, but it is it was, I just had to, I had to learn humility along the way, and it is the way of Christ's leadership also, and so anyway, it's all about having the right leaders in the field. And the worst person that we can have in the field leading our crews is arrogant crew leaders.
Yeah.
Arrogant crew leaders with that are highly egotistical will kill our guys. It'll kill our guys. It'll kill them all day long if we put them out there.
Yeah, I liken that unto egotistical and arrogant. I liken that unto a hazard that must be identified and mitigated. And basically what you were talking about, we're going to eliminate it, but we're going to substitute it with the humility and with empathy, and caring about one another. So tell us a little bit more, Dwight, about those leaders, your instructors, their leaders, and how can we teach those leadership skills on early? Because I think as apprentices, we're looking to top out, and we get all big-headed and everything, but there's so many leadership skills, Dwight, that when I travel around the country, they're not being taught at an early stage in their career. For instance, as an apprentice, why are we not doing that?
Well, so it's caught, not taught, right? There's, things are caught, they are. And so where are they typically going to lead? Where are they typically going to learn to lead at? They're typically going to learn by what they're around every day. So if we have the wrong people out there leading them, it's going to set the wrong example for them. So the key is, the key really is it's in an oversimplification. The key is having the right person leading them, because that's how they're ultimately going to think that they're supposed to lead, is the way that they see it being done. And if we have a poor example, then they're going to lead in that same poor way. And so that's the first thing, is we got to make sure that our leadership, that we have leading the crews is what we want the next person to emulate. If they're going to emulate them and they're not what we want, then what you're going to do is you're going to produce some really bad things, and it's just going to be a snowballing in the wrong direction. And so anyway, you talk about leadership training and stuff. There's a lot to be said about leadership training, but here's the problem with leadership training. The problem with leadership training is that it's not a one and done. Leadership training, it has to be done hands-on. It has to be done in real time, especially with linemen. Linemen are like, they're hands-on guys, okay? And so they learn it. They learn it in the field. They learn it being seen. They learn it by doing it. And so, Brent, here's one of the things that I'm thinking about offering after I retire, is I'm thinking about offering coaching to crew leaders out in the field in real time, because if you can sit them in a classroom and go through some leadership things, and they can pick up some things, and you know what they're going to pick up? About 10 to 20% of that, maybe. Yeah, you know how many of them they're actually going to then put and that they're actually going to implement then? Yeah. Probably about 1%, if that. And so we have an extreme failure from our leadership training to actually getting that done out in the field. So the leadership, the leadership, to me, is something that we're not doing in the industry right now. There might be places, and if you see this and I please want you to contact me. Let me know how you're doing it. Let me know exactly how, what your program is, where you're mentoring your leaders, because that's what I have in mind, is a leader mentorship program where you're actually going into the field. You're laying some groundwork in the classroom, but then you go into the field, and then you're actually coaching them in real time. Say, hey, that was awesome what you did here, and here's why it was awesome. Or, hey, you know what, we need to take a look at this, and here's why we need to take a look at this. And so you're pulling them off to the side, and you're coaching in real time, and then you're seeing if they can make those corrections. I think that's honestly the only way that we're going to really be able to turn our leadership around to what we need it to be. We got such young leaders. But one of the things I want to talk also about, okay, and kind of with that is with our young leaders, is I want to talk about our young crews. Okay. Yeah. So here's one of the things that I've learned just in the last couple of years. It's really come to me, and I've seen it because we have so many young line shops across our state and our co-ops. So I am the Senior Director of Safety Training and Loss Prevention for Ohio's electric cooperatives. And so we have 24 electric cooperatives in our state, and we have one in West Virginia. And so, but anyway, we have put a ton of people through our apprenticeship, and we are so young across the state. We have some really, really young line shops. And here's what I have learned. The line shops where the culture is amazing in the field and in the cooperative overall, those young line shops, they're not at risk, even though they're young. Why not? Why are they not at risk? Because they feel so comfortable at asking questions, because they understand because they're humble. They're not trying to impress people. They have a solid example of leadership in front of them. The senior leadership and the leadership throughout the organization has set the example of humility, and where they make it easy to ask questions. They're not afraid to ask questions. They're not afraid to say, I don't know how to do this. And so they're not stepping out and doing stupid stuff. But you have where you don't have a great culture, then it's like you have a young shop where you don't have a great culture, where guys are not afraid to, where they are more afraid to ask questions, or they're just trying to impress people and they just go for it, even if they don't understand it. That's where you're going to have problems. And so you have young line shops that are actually very safe, and young line shops that are very at risk. Determine it by what? By the leadership.
Yeah.
By the leadership who establishes the culture.
That is so true. And you mentioned it. It's not just the young leadership, but it's the leadership that is basically the higher ups, the white collar leadership, the brass leadership. It's got to be thorough. It's got to be from the top down, from the bottom up. And you nailed it, where there's folks that are at the bottom that are trying to bring in these skills as far as communication and opening up and allow everyone to contribute, everyone to participate. There's those that are trying to push and make a difference, and the higher ups, man, they're closed, they're almost untouchable, and those are risky. Those are risky companies, risky organizations. But you said it. When we come down and we meet each other on a level field, and we're a team, like you're saying, basically, and on equal ground, that's where the risk goes away.
I mean, people. It has to. The example of being open to communication has to be set at the top of the organization if it's going to be effective in that organization. And so, one of the things that we talk about all the time here in Ohio is speak up, listen up. I mean, that is the ultimate feedback. Okay. Is speak up, listen up, where people feel free to speak up, and the people that are spoken to, they understand the discipline of listening up, even though it's really hard for a veteran, to listen up at times, to be open to that, and to not get, defensive when something is said or when something is questioned, And so anyway, it is all about how the example is set in the organization, what the expectations are in the organization. One of the problems that we have is another issue that I plan on working on after I retire, and that is that we don't have solid metrics in our industry on the leading side. We have these lagging metrics that are, they're helpful for, slips, trips, and falls, and that type of thing. And then, but the metrics for the like the DART and your TRIR, those types of metrics with your recordables and everything, those are good for reducing your slips, trips, and falls. But yet, what have we seen in our industry, Brent, for the serious injuries and fatalities? What have we seen? We have seen, not just in our industry, but in all industries, we have seen the metrics go down over the years, but we have seen the SIFs remain the same, and it'll go up and down at that same rate without changing. And so anyway, so the $1 million question is how do we deal with that? Well, one of the issues that we have in our industry is that people, they will look at those lagging metrics and they associate that because of Heinrich's triangle. Okay, William Heinrich, I think that was his first. Was that his first name, William? I think it was. But anyway, he was an insurance guy, and nothing against insurance guys, but he was an insurance guy, and when he made that triangle, he had great intentions and everything, but that triangle has been proven to be wrong. When you're talking about, with your near misses and your lower stuff on the low end, and then eventually if you get enough of those, then you'll have it on the high end. What has to be separated is our SIF related near misses and the rest of the near misses. So they have to be in two buckets. We have to treat them differently. We have to understand when we're talking about serious injury and fatality potential things, and we have to understand when we're talking about non-SIF type things, and we handle them appropriately. And so anyway, and then one of the things that we've done in Ohio since 2022 is we've had 8 sessions of our program, Commitment to Zero Contacts. You can actually see in the background there, you can see my poster, okay? Mm-hmm. So we're not saying commitment to zero injuries, okay, because that's not realistic. Commitment to zero contacts, that's realistic. Commitment to zero serious injuries and fatalities is realistic. That is realistic in our industry. I hate when people talk about, talking about zero. It's like, no, zero is what I'm shooting for in our state all the time, every day. Who's going to volunteer for the one electrical contact? Who's going to volunteer for the, arc flash? It's like, no, we understand that guys are going to step in holes. We understand that guys are going to have smaller injuries. That is going to happen. You're never going to get down to zero on that. And so we're not going to shoot for zero on that. I mean, what are we going to shoot for? I'm not going to say we're going to shoot for 1, a 1.0, but what we're going to understand is we're going to understand, like when we're saying serious injury and fatalities, 0 is the goal. It's because why? Because we know that it's attainable. We understand the things. Brent, there's not one line shop that I couldn't go in today. I totally believe this. One line shop I couldn't go in today and predict an electrical contact is on the way. Mm-hmm. I don't think that there's one line shop where you couldn't predict it, where you couldn't watch crews work, where you couldn't watch how crews relate, how they work, their work practices, how they communicate, how they get along, what the culture is like at that line shop, whether it's a contractor or whether it's a utility. I don't believe there's one line shop that we couldn't go to where we couldn't predict an electrical contact. I don't believe it.
That's actually that is fact. What right there. So, man, I'll give you a case point. Several years ago, I went to utility, did training. Actually, many years ago, did training, and left. Came back a few years later after a fatality. They lost a very well-known team member in their organization, and I tell you what, I'm not sure why this has to happen this way, Dwight, but from the first time to the second time I went there, the second time, man, I'll tell you what, the CEO was on board, safety, pictures of family, your why. What is your why to be safe? What is the pictures all over the bulletin board all of a sudden, talking about safety, talking about speaking up. But man, why? Why does it take that predictability? You walk into a place, folks aren't getting along. Some people in the meetings got their head down, looking at their phone with their hats bill covering up their eyes, and they're not paying attention. And no one else really even cares that they're not. But why, man? And you can predict that something's getting ready to happen just by that alone, like you said. But why does it have to be that a team member has to die and be killed because of attitudes, and then all of a sudden, oh, we're going to change now and we're going to start connecting with one another? Why do we got to wait till then?
The biggest indicator of that type of a line shop is the fact that they don't want information. Okay. So when you have a situation of a poor culture, they don't want outside input. Okay. When you have a great culture, they're getting every kind of information that they can inside. They don't care if it makes them look bad. It doesn't matter. They want input, as much input as they can. And so that means that they're going to be surveying their people. It means they're going to be talking to their people. It means they're going to be bringing third parties in from the outside and saying, hey, what are we missing? And that type of thing. That's what a great culture wants, is they want that information. They go, give us all the bad information. We want it. We want that. We want that information. Sidney Decker, you know what he says? He says that there's one indicator of culture. He says, all you got to ask is one question. Is it safe to give the boss bad news? I want you to think about that. Is it safe to give the boss bad news? Because if it's not safe, they don't want the news, and they're not going to invite that in, and nothing's going to stop an accident from happening at those places, because nobody's going to be able to give them warning. You have a great culture. They're going to be inviting people in. You're going to be able to head things off. When you see something, you say, hey, you got a gap right here. And one of the things, what I was going to say was that one of the things that we've done since 2022 is we've done 8 to 9 of these per year in Ohio, is we've run these commitment to zero contact sessions. It's a session, it's a phase 2 session where we actually get in, we have them do a survey ahead of time, and then we get into a room and we powwow these things out, and we say, what's going on out in the field? And they tell us exactly what's going on in the field.
Wow.
And so anyway, what was awesome this year, Brent, it was the second time that 8 of our co-ops went through it. Okay. They went through it first in 2022. Here's what we found out in 2025. The issues that came up in 2022, we built a plan for those things. Okay. We proposed a plan. The co-ops adopted that plan. Okay. They put that plan into motion. And here's what every lineman at those co-ops told us. Every lineman, there was not one co-op this year. I want you to think about how negative linemen can be. Not one lineman at any of our co-ops that we surveyed that said that progress had not been made. Not one. Isn't that amazing? And what we found out was we found out that the areas that we had identified and that we had targeted through that open discussion, through that closed door environment, Brent, it was a closed door session. Through that closed door session, when we're trying to figure out what's going on where's the gap that could kill somebody here. And then when we put those out, we build a plan, we propose that to senior staff, we tell senior staff what's going on, and they say, hey, we're going to take care of this. And you know what we found out? They did. That's how we prevent SIFs. We prevent SIFs, we prevent serious injuries and fatalities by taking them head on. We figure out what's going on at each line shop. We can't just have blanket things. It's like, no, specifically, this was a procedure that was accepted by the guys. For some reason, they thought that this was okay to do. Why? Because they had always done it that way. Even though they knew that it was not the proper procedure, they had always done it that way. And so therefore now it was the accepted way to do it at this facility. And so but when you have that, when you let someone else in, and by the way, our co-ops are 100% where they have invited that program, which is awesome. I mean, I love that we have 100% engagement in that program, and now it's actually mandatory for every co-op to go through it once every 3 years. They've made it mandatory for all the others.
Man, so you've setting up the system. I love it, Dwight. This wasn't here 2007, 2009. Okay, you went through a lot of hurdles, man. A lot of life, like you said, you had to catch these things. You weren't taught these things, right? So you had all these things. So what you're setting up, this is awesome. You're setting up inclusion. Everybody's included here.
Absolutely.
I like that. Everybody's included. You're setting up learning. We're going to keep learning from each other.
For sure, absolutely.
Instructors to students, student to instructors, students to students. You're gonna that's all open, invited. You're gonna have it's safe that everybody can contribute. So here's what's happening. You're contributing, you're getting together, contributing, and the biggest thing that's the deal breaker as far as getting through that ice pack that's just blocking us from getting through this big, beautiful ocean is the fact that you are able to challenge the status quo. So these things, what we've always done. We've always done that, but no. It's safe to challenge the status quo in your organization.
Yeah, that's great, Brent. That's exactly right. And that's how you make a change. It's one shop at a time, one lineman at a time, one conversation at a time. And it's leaders, it's us leaders making good decisions as of who's leading crews out in the field. Are people qualified for what they're doing out in the field? And so anyway, no, I think that's exactly right, and that's fantastic. So yeah.
So let's go back. We're going to go back in time. You're an apprentice, all right?
Mm-hmm.
What part of your apprenticeship, as far as what you said this is kind of interesting. What part of what you said, I'll give you the quote in just a minute, can you bring from that to today to our leadership and those who are still growing? We're all growing, but continuing learning, the apprentices in the line work, where you actually were at a point when you were an apprentice that you thought in your head that you could die today.
Mm-hmm.
Let's bring that forward. What part of that can we glean? We could die today if we do not do these things that you all haven't implemented.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a number of things there. It's a really good question, Brent. I do appreciate the question. Number one, the bravado, okay, of being a lineman at that time was that I was actually told this by one of the other guys. He said, listen, buddy, he said, if you're not okay coming to work knowing that you might not make it home by the end of the day, this is not for you. He said, this career is not for you. And you know what that did was that gave me a bravado also. You know what I mean? Then, okay, now I'm a little cocky, you know, a little egotistical that I'm doing something where it's like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I could end up dead today, you know? And so anyway, so it actually gave me that bravado, you know, and so if I put myself into an unsafe situation, I was good with that.
Wow.
I was doing it for production, you know, I was doing it so that I could get a lot of work done, so that I could make company for the money. You know, Brent, every week when I was on one job, every week they would bring all 20 foremen. It was a big job, 22 foremen on the job. They would bring every foreman in, and I was a foreman on my crew. They would bring every foreman in, and they would give a sheet of how much money everybody made the week before. And so they would shame everybody else in that room. If you were on a tough job that was hard to make money, they would shame you in front of everybody. Well, I learned how to work the system. I banked my units, and I looked good every week, you know. So anyway, it's like, yeah, I can work the system. I'm not going to look real good one week and look like crap the next, you know. And so, but anyway, you're coming from just a totally different mindset. Okay, it's a mindset of bravado. It's a mindset of, hey, I got to look good in front of others. You know, I have to do this. I have to do that. And so anyway, but with that, I do want to say that, like, if you fast forward that into now, one of the issues that we have is that, like, with us, okay, we just, you know, we just don't have incidents happen. That's great. Now, so the question is how do you maintain so that the guys still have a healthy respect of what they're working around, you know? So what's the balance between not having incidents versus the guys actually, you know, respecting what they're doing? And understanding it and respecting it, understanding that if they do decide, you know, that things go the wrong way, you know, that they could end up, you know, in a bad place. And so, but that comes back to effective training. It really does. And so it's like, okay, you know, some guys say, oh, they don't want to hear your war stories. War stories are necessary to a degree. Okay. For some people, it's more effective. For some people, it's less effective. Some people don't want to hear it. Other people need to hear it, you know? And so, but the problem is if we have workers out in the field that have never seen anything, Brent, other than what's on YouTube. You know, the good thing is that we do have YouTube now, and we do have TikTok where you can see fires and all these things that can happen. So you have that aspect of it, which is good, you know, so they do have that, but they've never actually experienced, they've never actually seen it. And so for us, that's the tough part, you know? And so anyway, but with that, you know, there has to be, you know, there has to be an understanding, and there has to be training where it's like, where it's like, okay, what are we actually doing in the field? Okay, now let's go ahead and say this happens. Okay, one of the things I do grounding training all over the United States. Okay, Brent, that's kind of been my niche. Is I do grounding seminars all over the United States. I'll do presentations, and then I'll do seminars, all day seminars. And so I'm going to actually be going to. I actually just got called this last week on coming from a place where a contact just happened, and we're going to go and work with their folks. And so anyway, in another state. And so anyway, but with that, one of the things that I have to do there is I have to lay out my case. Okay. The why is all good and everything as far as like I'm doing it for my family. I'm doing it, I'm connecting with my coworkers. If you don't understand the technical aspect, those things are going to be moot point. Okay. Because why? Because you're not going to do the job right. There's three things, when you talk about like, when you talk about like a shortcuts, human error, and lack of training, what causes accidents in our industry? Here's what I've come to. Okay. After everything that I hear, everything I've learned, number one, on overhead distribution, it's shortcuts. On underground distribution, it's human error. On induction-related contacts and fatalities, it's lack of training. They don't understand it. People don't understand it. And so anyway, so with that, it's like, so when we do our training, we have to get into their minds. What is it? Is it a shortcut? Or is it human error? Or is it lack of training? What is it? What is actually going on? Well, let's go into that. Let's figure out what's happening there. But when the guys, here's what I love about the grounding training is when the guys see the numbers and when the guys understand that, hey, you know what? The way that we're working right now, we wouldn't be protected if this actually became re-energized. Mm-hmm. You're kidding me. You mean we really wouldn't be, if that came re-energized, we really wouldn't be okay? No, you really wouldn't be okay. And I can give you the exact numbers and the exact what's going to happen. In a range, what's exactly going to happen? If you end up in a situation, something like this, which would not be far from reality, that everybody is going to encounter. And so I think there has to be, when you talk about the understanding, there has to be an understanding. There has to be a solid understanding of the facts. And one of the things that I love about the grounding is I expected when I first started doing it, I expected there to be a lot of pushback. I expected there to be negative things. There hasn't been that at all. You know what? There's been an acceptance, and they want to learn. And you know what they say when we're done? You know what they say? They say, "Thank you so much for coming."
Yeah.
We didn't know. We just didn't know. And so when they don't know, then they don't understand what's going to be the consequences. Now, do I have to go into gory things and everything? That's what's going to happen? No, they get it. They get that if they make contact, that they could end up dead, because we'll actually go into the theory of electric shock and why some people die, why some people don't die during electric shock. We're going to talk about, what the ventricular fibrillation thresholds are on a short shock, on a long shock. We go into all those things also so that they understand that, oh, you mean I could get into 120 and be killed if I am making contact in the rain for 3 seconds. I would probably go into ventricular fibrillation. Yes, you would likely go into ventricular fibrillation if it's raining and you get into 120. That's exactly what's going to happen. And so it's like, wow, that's powerful. That's powerful understanding of, that type of thing. Why? Because your body's at 1,000 ohms. It's numbers. These are things that they need to know, things that they need to understand. But there has to be that foundational basis of these things, So anyway, with that, those are just kind of some of my thoughts on that, Brent.
Yeah, that's the tone, setting this up, the training, the lack of the human error, the shortcuts. I like those three, and sharing with them on the ohms and the resistance as far as in the system, and how that current takes all available paths to a certain degree, depending on the resistance. Of course, it's going to take every path. But the thing that I see is that we, as people working together, we can actually be the resistance on our crews. And man,
so I got pulling up your reinvented wheel, right?
Oh, yeah. I did.
So I'll put a plug in for your reinvented energy wheel. Okay.
Yeah, man. I didn't know you got one. I sent one to you.
What's that? No, you gave it to me when I saw you at the summit last year.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Summit last year, you gave me one.
Oh, that's awesome.
I got it right here on my desk, Brent.
That's awesome. Yeah. So Dwight, we're gonna have to get some information, and we're gonna have Jeremy put it on whatever information you like as far as how folks can contact you. And then also, if there's some information when you retire, you're saying July, June?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as, and I think you have possibly a name picked out already too. And maybe we could put that up, because you're going to be coaching a lot of folks around the country. And so
we'll see. There you go. It's right there. So you kind of see it there. Come Along Safety is my
Come Along Safety.
That's my brand. So anyway,
that's awesome.
So you need to pull your safety up to sag. So that's what it is. So my logo is a guy on a pole with a hoist. The catch-22 is the hoist is a come along, and the come along is like come along. Let's go. We're behind. We need to go, and we need to go into the forefront. You need to come along. And so anyway, so anyway, I'm gonna Come Along's first order of business is to create a Christian safety conference. We're gonna do that. Come Along's gonna do that first. So that's gonna be the first thing it does. So, but I do some things out of that business right now on the side.
Okay. Yeah. So just some contact information. And again, I would encourage all the folks will let your culture of safety listen and hear to Mr. Dwight. I would encourage you folks to reach out to him as far as for advice, and as far as possibly planning training center. Like we've said here, it's one of the very best I've seen anywhere in the country, and underground, overhead, secondary, primary, everything. So definitely reach out to Dwight, and you're gonna be happy to receive his coaching services for sure. And as far as a person, Dwight, I personally know him. Met him several years ago at a conference face to face, and we hit it off. Boom. And so reach out to him. He's real. And Dwight, do you have any parting words for us, brother?
Wow. Take life one day at a time. Okay. One day at a time. Make today your day. That's one thing I've learned in life. That matters in safety. It matters in everything. Is that make the most out of every day, out of every encounter. When you get up in the morning, thank the Lord that you're alive. And what do you have for me today, Lord? Because it matters. What you do today matters. Don't be thinking about, you have a vision for tomorrow, but it all comes down to, like, each day, each of us can make the most of make the most of everything, or we can continually just miss what's right in front of us and be looking into the future. And so, especially for you, if any young folks watching this out there, it's the thing that I've learned the most is to make the most of the moment. And every encounter, every discussion, every conversation can be life-altering for someone on the other end, and their conversation to you can be life-altering to you as well. So, yeah, that's what I got.
Very good, man. Dwight, bless you, brother. Thank you for sharing your Livewire story. And I know this will touch many, many folks for a long time to come. And thank you.
Thanks for having me, Brent. I love you, brother. I mean, appreciate you so much. You're a blessing in my life. And I love this industry. And so I just want to say blessings to anybody that watches this.
Thanks. Thank you, man. Bye-bye, brother.
Bye-bye.